Hi folks, Mark Merrill with Firm. Our focus is on the Insurrection Act proposed by Donald Trump versus the protesters and anyone who gets in the way. Well, right now, folks, the gauntlet has been thrown down by President Donald Trump against the anti-ICE protesters in Minneapolis, and it's sharp-toothed and specific. That gauntlet is, anyway. By the president's administration to stop the violence, threats, and very nasty rhetoric once and for all. And it's going to go into effect around the United States. Here in Maine, Massachusetts probably might be next. Minnesota seems to be the linchpin. Hey, Gavin Newsom, you paying attention? You might be next. But right off here, folks, as you see before you is some of the people from the Maine Wire up on the top here. And over to the left-hand side, we'd like you to meet Somali American Safiya Khalid. But this is from January 20th, as far as the Maine Wire reporting here. But she has connections to many of the healthcare organizations in Lewiston and in Portland. But she accuses Maine Wire journalists, all of them, not just Mr. Featherstone here, or Featherston, John Featherston, and these two other gentlemen who work for Steve Robinson of the Maine Wire. But she says they give false accusations against her career, I guess you might say, even though she's a member of the Maine legislature, and also of the fraud at those different locations, healthcare locations, and then Maine Wire journalists follow up with this. First, you're going to hear from a short blast accusation from Miss Khalid.
See folks who are targeting them, right, and spewing hateful rhetoric and talking about, they're taking your jobs, they're taking your food, they're taking everything. So I just again want to bring attention to this.
So there you go. They're taking food. They're taking. I think she was going to say drugs. Maybe I'm not sure. But that's a former, somebody who was working at the behest of the voters at one point, who's a filthy, vile person.
But if I may, Mr. Shattuck, just a moment. That's unacceptable. That's vile language. It's a shot at you. It's a shot at Graham. It's a shot at me. Because the references that she is giving is actually to my work. Like, listen, I was a public official for a long time, as you both know. I can't tell you how many times the media came to my front door, knocked on my door, and asked for a comment. You're a public official. Mm-hmm. That's part of the job. Yes, do you walk into somebody and invade their privacy? Absolutely, you do not. But she said we've listed names and addresses. Produce those documents. Produce those documents, Safiya Khalid, because what you did is vile. There's no other word for it. It isn't inappropriate, but it's vile, it's destructive, and you're doing it because we're over the target. And you're pulling out the race card and calling Steve Robinson a neo-Nazi. Listen, Steve can defend himself, but I'm going to defend Steve. I work for Steve Robinson because I have the utmost respect for him as a human being. There's nobody more that I trust outside of my family than Steve Robinson. Steve Robinson's a man of integrity. He has high standards for all of us. And for her to do that is a shot at everybody that works for the Maine Wire, but it's also a shot for everybody that works in media. Our job is to report the facts. And good journalism is reporting facts that people don't want reported. Okay? Anything else is just public relations. We're not in the public relations. We're in the media relationship. She owes us a full apology and anything less than a full apology is unacceptable, as far as I'm.
Yeah, Matt, do you have the screenshot from Hillary Clinton by any chance that you could throw up? Because, yeah, so this I think is amazing. This is from 2019.
An endorsement by Hillary Clinton. Of Miss Safiya Khalid. This should be interesting, huh, folks? Hear this.
When she became apparently the first Somali American to be a member of the city council. What qualifications did Safiya Khalid have to get this glowing profile from Hillary Clinton? For a Lewiston city councilor member, as far as I can see, and after having listened to about 15 minutes of our TikTok rants yesterday, which I texted Steve and I said I'm filing for workers' comp because that was one of the most painful things I've ever had to do. It's just mind-blowing. It's strictly identity politics. When it comes to the neo-Nazi thing, for me, it's like that is just an irrelevant insult because the word has no meaning anymore if you're just going to throw it out willy-nilly like that. But I also thought it was very funny. She was threatening the Maine Wire in the caption of that TikTok. She's like, oh, we need to spam the Maine Wire social media, please. I'm like, please, that's totally fine by me. If that's your reconciliationist to comment on our votes, I'll take that all day long. Yeah, it's pretty amazing that this was a rising star, you could say, being tweeted by Hillary Clinton. She worked as a clerk in the Health and Human Services Committee. I hope I didn't get that right, but a committee in Augusta she was a clerk for. She apparently, quote-unquote, lost some paperwork that should have been entered into the public record on farm labor, I have been told. She's best friends with Shenna Bellows. She was the organizer for this Support the Somali rally that John got kicked out of, by the way, I'm assuming by Safiya Khalid, at least I'm sure she had a part in that. But yeah, fundraisers with Shenna Bellows, part of Gateway Community Services, part of Gateway Community Services' political arm, which is a community organizing alliance, and is deeply, deeply connected in all of what we've been reporting on. I think when she said we're reporting on addresses, she might be talking about 210 Blake Street, John, because that's the only address I can think of that we've reported on. And yeah, please, Safiya Khalid, please keep talking about 210 Blake Street. I would love as many people as possible to go to 210 Blake Street and take a look at what's going on over at that place.
You know, I think it was Steve who tweeted out over the weekend, essentially something along the lines that whether it's a daycare or it's a healthcare business, there should be a lot of displaced and angry patients in students' parents.
Uh-huh.
And where are they all? Where's the uproar from it? You know, you figure that's something that you go to the AG for and say, hey, we were promised healthcare resources in this building from right here, and we've got nothing. And we were promised that I could deposit my kid here from 5 days a week, and they're not. The amount of red flags that were not tripped is frightening. It just shows you how deep this grift is and how well established it is at this point. If it's not for John Feniston and Steve and other Maine Wire people walking into a lot of these badly lit buildings, this story is nowhere. Nobody knows. None of the tripwires, government tripwires that should be catching this stuff. Other than it seems like some flimsy fines here and there or one bad audit over the last 5 years, nothing's catching this.
And that's just the tip of the iceberg there, folks, coming from the Maine Wire. And, of course, a little bit of slamming there from Miss Khalid you heard at the beginning. But in the meantime, folks, we've got a little bit of a background check on Miss Khalid that we'd like to present to you as well. Bring this up as close as possible so you can see some of it, folks. But we're about to read you some more accurate, fact-based research details. Now then, it seems, as we get started on it here from Wikipedia and Microsoft Bing, wish we had more accurate information, folks, including some videos of her, which we wish we could show you. But she was born in Somalia as a 7-year-old and fled her country with her mother and 2 younger brothers. The family initially settled in New Jersey before moving to Lewiston, Maine. At 14, she became an American citizen. She attended Lewiston public schools and graduated from Lewiston High School and went on to graduate from the University of Southern Maine, where she studied psychology. It says right here that Khalid is currently a graduate student at Northeastern University. She apparently had also established an organization, as we take a look at it here first. WISE, of course spells wise, but we're about to see exactly what that comes out to be here in just a moment, folks, as we bring up our research. Women's Islamic Initiative in Spirituality and Equality. Of course, you might have heard already that the gentleman from the Maine Wire had brought up that she's the first Somali American Muslim woman and youngest person to be elected for a seat in the Lewiston City Council. She won the election with almost 70% of the vote. Yeah, I highly doubt that. But says she's an advocate for immigrants' rights. But apart from being a council member, she's also an advocate and works as a case manager, or did work as a case manager, for Gateway Community Services right here in Maine, one of the nonprofits which supports immigrants in America by offering management services to asylum seekers and refugees and integrating them into local communities. I think you've heard enough, folks. And as we get back onto our program here, ladies and gentlemen, as we continue on with Insurrection Act, Federal Insurrection Act, proposed by Donald Trump versus protesters, among others. We also have up next here, ladies and gentlemen, an article from one of the sources called Chained, CHAINED, from January 17th. Says lawmaker Tom Homan, senior Trump administration official with ICE, said invoking the Insurrection Act to address the anti-ICE situation is vital. Go on to that information here in just a moment, folks. Thank you for joining us. This is Firm Focus on the Insurrection Act versus protesters. So as we get started on that one, folks, as you can see Mr. Trump alongside Mr. Homan, the tensions in Minneapolis escalated sharply following the fatal shooting of January 7th, you'll recall, from 37-year-old Renee Nicole Good, who died from multiple gunshot wounds after the encounter with federal agents, and she didn't want to move her car. When she did, the ICE agents, or the ICE agent that fired, was trying to protect himself. Federal response and deployment of ICE agents in response to that fatal shooting, the federal government has significantly increased its law enforcement presence in Minnesota under a campaign variously described in reports as an intensified immigration enforcement operation. Federal agencies, including ICE and other portions of the DHHS and Department of Homeland Security, oh my gosh, both? Not taking any chances. Thousands of personnel have already been dispatched to the region to conduct operations related to immigration and public safety. We understand subpoenas have already been issued to Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, as well as his big shot, big mouth mayor of Minneapolis, Mr. Fry. But in addition, ladies and gentlemen, amid the developments, Tom Homan acknowledged in a televised interview that the Insurrection Act is being discussed as a possible tool to address ongoing violence against federal law enforcement officers, including ICE agents. All of them, coast to coast, especially those who have just come to the state of Maine. Knock, knock, Janet. You better be home. Shackles may be forthcoming for you and your Attorney General and your Secretary of State. Beware. In the segment, Mr. Homan also said that while he would not preempt the president's decision, the act is a viable option as well, and that he planned to speak with the president about it in another time. The act is a long-standing federal statute originally enacted in the early 19th century that, if invoked, can authorize the deployment of federal military forces to suppress civil unrest when normal law enforcement is deemed insufficient. Gee, I think that's a good one. Mr. Walz can't get away from that. And neither can Janet Mills. Or those in the other blue states of Detroit, Michigan, naming the capital, of course, upstate New York, Kathy Hochul. How about Gavin Newsom while we're at it? Mr. Trump has noted that the Insurrection Act has been used historically and that he might consider it, but affirmed that conditions at the present moment did not, in his view, warrant its activation. The situation in Minneapolis and broader Minnesota remains volatile as protests, legal challenges, and political debates continue. Federal court actions have been taken to limit certain tactics used against protesters by immigration agents, and state officials have taken legal steps challenging federal enforcement approaches. Yeah, sure. Yeah. As long as we can kill some while we're at it. Molotov cocktails. Rocks, knives. Who's supplying these people, by the way? Oh, probably George Soros. The outcome of these debates and any decisions regarding federal force deployment will likely have lasting implications for how civil unrest and federal immigration enforcement intersect in the United States overall, as both communities and political leaders grapple with complex questions about authority, public safety, and constitutional constraints. You heard that, folks. Constitutional constraints. As for the ongoing accusations and threats against Maine citizens for promoting Somalis back overseas in their own country, the debate continues, though not very well, about Gateway Health, Somali community health offices, with, of course, the more recent one that just came through our news area, folks, before the podcast. Records from the Maine Wire show significant overbilling by 5 Stars Home Health Care. That's a third one. And it also says that Gateway, Somali community health offices, as well as the other one, show that upon arriving at those locations, both Mr. Featherston as well as Mr. Robinson found no staff, no children or other people in those offices, but plenty of online and social media attacks against Maine Wire reporters, while our lawmakers in the State House in Augusta keep having to listen to Governor Mills' slams against federal immigration laws that are violating immigrants' rights in Maine. But no mainstream legacy network media reports anything going on. Channel 6, 5, 13, 8, they don't give a damn. They're not sticking up for your rights or mine, folks. They especially hate the media that tells the truth. Right now, we're going to present a refreshing report of hope for prosperity and good news in 2026 from a recent weekly Republican report from House Representative Arthur Mingo.
As we look toward 2026, here are a few honest predictions, not from partisan lens, but from listening to working families, seniors, small business owners, and independents who simply want Maine to work better. And here in Maine, many people feel change too. First, working families still won't get meaningful tax relief. Despite rising costs, Democrats in Augusta will refuse to extend common sense tax policies already adopted at the federal level. Relief like no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, a higher standard deduction, and modest help for seniors and working families financing a vehicle. For many Mainers, that means less take-home pay and more pressure already on tight household budgets. Second, welfare fraud will finally come into the open. Concerns about Maine Care fraud didn't appear overnight. Audits, whistleblowers, and reports from the state auditor have raised red flags for years. Recently, state payments were suspended to Gateway Community Services following credible allegations of fraud. And similar cases in other states show how serious these problems can become when there is no oversight. Federal authorities are now involved, and we believe that process will reveal how long these warning signs were ignored and why taxpayers were left in the dark. Third, electric bills will keep climbing. Maine has already some of the highest energy costs in the country. Without policy changes that focus on reliability and affordability, families and small businesses will continue to feel squeezed every time that power bill arrives. Fourth, common sense. Fairness in girls' sports becomes a statewide decision. Courts will reaffirm long-standing protections against sex-based discrimination. Maine citizens will also make their voices heard through the ballot to support fairness, safety, opportunity for young women to compete on a level playing field. Fifth, ranked choice voting will show its limitations. With crowded races and delayed results, voters will wait weeks to know who actually won. Confidence in elections depends on clarity, transparency, and trust. And more Mainers will question whether the current system delivers that. And finally, partisan budget dysfunction continues. Despite record revenues, legislative Democrats will once again shut down the legislature early to prevent a shutdown. they will pass another partisan budget instead of focusing first on working people, seniors, and those on fixed incomes. Spending continues to grow without enough accountability or long-term planning. But here's the most important prediction of all. In 2026, more Mainers, Democrats, Republicans, and Independents alike will recognize that Maine can do better. That good government isn't about narrow ideology. It's about responsibility, transparency, and respect for the people who pay the bills. We believe Maine is ready for practical solutions that improve quality of life, not policies driven by narrow interests or political agendas. Republicans work for you. We remain committed to helping every Mainer use their God-given talents to build a stronger future for themselves and their families and our state. This has been Representative Arthur Mingo with the Weekly Republican Address. Thank you for listening, and thank you for helping us change Maine for the better. Please subscribe, share, and follow us on Facebook, X, TikTok.
Thank you to Representative Mingo very much. We get ready to conclude our program, folks, here on the Insurrection Act from Donald Trump versus protesters, and also against those who would like to see this country crumble, go into socialism. One more thing, as you see behind us here, folks. United States Customs and Border Protection Shield, the division of the United States Department of Homeland Security. As citizens, we must report illegal aliens when they are found. It is the law, it says. And here's where you go. 1-866-DHS-2-ICE. 866-DHS-2-ICE, or go to their website, ice.gov. The number again, 866-347-2423. This will be also not only on our podcast here for reference, but also it's on our vehicle. We promote and drive throughout all Waterville area and greater southern Somerset County, as well as southern Kennebec County. We the people. We have the Bill of Rights on our car, as well as other information where you'll be able to contact us anytime. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, including Fairness in Reporting Media at gmail.com. Fairness in Reporting Media at gmail.com. Right there. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, as mentioned. Podcasts at least 5, sometimes 6 times a week. We're on YouTube and X. Pray for our country, folks. Keep praying. All Maine citizens. For guidance and determined restoration of truth, and keep and sustain our freedoms, common sense in troubled times. Stay safe, everyone, and peace to all.